Hey everybody, this is Frito for Your Overwatch, here to bring up an important multiplayer game topic, toxicity. At the start of this game, someone was coming at me in chat. Not too rough, and in fact, I wouldn't call this a toxic experience, but I thought it was a good contrast to the fact that the guy was calling me out that we definitely need to change off Widow, despite the fact that the previous game, I had 54% kill participation. Come out here. I just barely missed the opening pick headshot on their Widow. Turn around and completely decimate this spawn trap. At this point, I'm feeling I'm going to try as hard as I possibly can to show that guy what's what. In all actuality, I have not dealt with any toxicity in the Overwatch community, mostly because I don't think anybody knows how to join the chat channels. Every time I play, we're usually in TeamSpeak, and you have to switch if you're in a pre-made group into the team chat to even hear anybody. There's always the fear in these online games that require teamwork and everyone to understand how compositions work, that there's going to be a bunch of infighting. You see this a lot in League of Legends, the DOTA community, where everybody has their specific roles they have to play, and everyone has their own opinion on how those roles should be played and who's doing a good job, who's at the fault of the team, who needs to change. And I want to get out in front of this in the community. And I personally, I think, or I hope, I have matured a bit being an adult now. I try not to needlessly scream at my teammates, even if they're completely wrong. Now, I'll be honest. I go to talk trash to him in the chat here after I go in this massive killing streak, give us the objective pretty much for free. We constantly have a man advantage because I keep getting picks. But the enemy team is also pretty bad. They're not using their mobility characters well enough to avoid me and respect the space I'm taking, and I'm just eating it up constantly, like just hitting solid shots left and right, but ultimately it's based upon their poor movement and their poor teamwork that allows me to do it. So maybe ultimately the guy was right. Maybe Widowmaker isn't the best for our specific team composition. But I think what needs to be understood in the Overwatch community, more than anything else, that the class distinctions that they put on the characters are not as descriptive as they need to be. They're far too simplistic, because the difference between Diva and Roadhog compared to Winston and Reinhardt is massive. The characters are good at completely different things, and just because they have a little bit more HP doesn't mean they really fill a tank role. In the same way, I don't think Widowmaker actually is a defender, necessarily. Like, Torbjorn is more of a defensive hero than Widowmaker, because Widowmaker actually can challenge gunfights from the enemy team. She actually should be described as a damage dealer. Characters that can take aim duels and deal damage, because that's a very different role than the defender, whereas like Symmetra and Torbjorn, they play a more defensive, hold a spot position, whereas really if you want to be a good Widowmaker, you need to be out challenging and actually creating openings for your team and dealing big chunks of damage. And I think that misunderstanding is what came for the guy to come at me. You know, he sees us picking a Widowmaker, he thinks we're on attack, he thinks it's bad to have a sniper on attack, ignoring the fact that really, it's just a hit scan character. It's a character that deals big chunks of damage with hit scans. If I'm killing the other team, we're going to succeed in pushing the cart. And in fact, you're going to have to kill the other team unless you do some sort of massive sustain setup, like I explained in my previous video, where all the characters are built to synergize together to keep everybody alive. And I think with over time, players will understand how many complex compositions can be utilized in the game, because right now it seems like everyone's picking for themselves, not really understanding what a good team comp can be, and more importantly, how many of those exist, because you can have a comp that's all tanks and doesn't deal much damage potentially, and the Overwatch hero picker selector screen, whatever it's called, will tell you like, oh, you have too many of this hero. But in actuality, the map you're playing may facilitate utilizing a couple tanks or to have more attack damage characters. It all depends on the approach you want to take on the game. So I kind of almost don't even like that thing pops up, because it gets people this anxiety like, oh, I shouldn't be trying these different things because the game thinks it's wrong. No, not necessarily. I want Overwatch to be better than the Dota community and the League community, where everyone gets mad at each other constantly. It is a bit of a pet peeve of mine when people don't actually know what they're talking about, try to make calls for the team, but I understand where they're coming from. They just want to win. They think they know what the answer is, so they want to tell you what to do. The best thing for the Overwatch community to do is have these discussions openly and civilly, and instead of trying to pick some standard default setup, try to discuss the map and what you can exploit or ways you can counter the opposing team's composition, because the guy was like, oh, they have 3 tracers. Even if they do, and I can still hit them and get picks, it doesn't really matter if I'm dealing damage, as far as I'm concerned. If they were dodging effectively and I never could touch them and I was just missing shots constantly, he would have been right. That's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button, share it around, and I'll see you tomorrow.